Hello student, today we are going to learn the types of CSS selector. There are 5 types of CSS selector: Universal Selector, Element Selector, ID Selector, Class Selector and Attribute Selector. So in the previous class we have discussed about the types of CSS. So how many types of CSS? How many ways are there to write the CSS code? That we have discussed in the previous class, in the previous CSS class. So in this particular class I will discuss about the CSS selector. There are 5 types of CSS selector, and we have discussed in the previous class that the CSS selector will indicate the HTML element that is used in the body, and the declared CSS property along with the value, so those property will be exercised over the HTML element. Okay, so that we have discussed in the previous class. So let us today discuss about the types of selector. So I will show you practically. Okay, so you can see the text editor that I am using today is NetBeans IDE 8.1. and the file name is test.html. so this is the HTML root, head and body. So inside the head we have a title. Inside the title I have written CSS selector class. So let me open the file. This is the file and this is the code. So let me see, blank file because I have not written anything, just the head portion is written CSS selector class. So before I show you the different types of selector, let me first write some of the HTML element. So I will write the heading, right? So I will write here this is my heading, right? So I will do one thing, I will copy this few more times. Okay, now I will do another thing, I will make it 2. Okay, I will make it to 2, right? Now this thing I will make it to 3. Here also I make it 3, right? And this thing I will make it to 4. Here also I make it to 4, right? Now one thing, if you notice, H1 heading, I have 2 H1 heading in this document, right? 2 H1 heading, and I have 2 H2 heading in this HTML file, and H3 heading 2, H4 heading also 2. So you can see, so I have taken H1 to H4 heading, and each of those there are 2 headings, right? And let us also take the paragraph. So I will take a paragraph, right? So inside the paragraph let me write something. This is my para. So I will do one thing, to make it a long text I will just repeatedly paste this thing for a few more times, right? Okay, so let me paste again. Okay, now it will look a long paragraph. So let me see first, before I apply the selector or CSS, so how it appears. So you can see this is how it appears in the browser. So I have still not applied the CSS. So now let us start applying the CSS. So I will use the internal mode of writing CSS. What does the CSS do? CSS will modify the default property of the HTML element. How it is going to modify? It will modify the CSS property that I will be declaring inside the style, right? So as I told you, I will use the internal method of writing CSS. So for that, inside the head I will first write the style style opening and style style closing tag, right? This is how I can write the internal CSS. So this thing I have discussed in the previous class. So inside the heading tag I will write style opening and style closing. Here I will write the selector. So first I will show you the Css Universal Selector. So see, to declare the Css Universal Selector, you have to press star. So this is star, right? So after star you have to declare the CSS property. How can you declare the CSS property? Inside the curly bracket. This is the second bracket, and within the second bracket you can declare the CSS property. So you can also write here in this way. This is also not the wrong way to write the CSS. Okay, if you want you can also write like this. Okay, so this is the star and this is the declaration. So inside these two brackets you are going to declare the CSS property. So let me write color, right? So the property that I have declared inside these two curly bracket for the universal selector, that is color. So I will write the value now. Okay, value, that is red. So please pay attention and try to understand. This is the universal selector, and this is I am declaring the CSS property for the universal selector. How to declare the CSS property? That is inside the second bracket, curly bracket, right? And this is the property. Which property I am going to modify? This color property I am going to modify for the HTML element. And what is the value? This is the value, that is red. So all the color, can you see? Before I have applied the CSS, this is the default color for all the element. How many element are here? You can see 2 H1 heading, 2 H2 heading, and 2 H3 heading, and 2 H4 heading, and also a paragraph. So this many types of this many element we have over here, right? So now I have applied this property. This is color property. I am going to change for all this heading. So universal selector will be applicable to each and every element that you are going to write inside this document. So let me now refresh and check. See, can you see? All these elements are turned to red. Previously the color was black. Black, that is the default color for all these element, right? But once I have applied as a universal selector, that is the property, that color. So color for all the element that is written here inside this document will convert it to this value. The value is red. This is what about the universal selector. So universal selector will be denoted by the star. It will be addressed and referred by this star symbol. So whatever property you are going to declare within this curly bracket of the universal selector, okay, that property will be applicable to each and every element that is placed inside this document, right? So if you do one thing, separate this property and let me add another property. So text align center. So you can see inside this curly bracket I have declared two separate CSS property, and how to separate, you know, I have discussed in the previous class by the semicolon, right? And you can see two CSS property I have over here, and another CSS property I have written text align. Text align is the property. So alignment, you can see by default the alignment of this text, that is at the right side. So by default HTML all HTML element, or you can say all HTML object, will start from the left side, not the right side, left side. So this is the default alignment, that is starting from the left side. But now here I have written text align will be at the center, and that thing I have declared inside the curly bracket, which is referred by the universal selector. Now universal selector is going to indicate all the element, all this element, that is h1 heading, h2 heading, h3 heading, h4 heading, and paragraph, and all the text will now align to right at the center. So can you see this? So I hope you have understood how to use the universal selector. So now I will show you CSS Element Selector. See, so let me delete this thing now. Okay, so after I have deleted the universal selector, let me check the all property is assigned to its default color, that is black color, and that is a default alignment that is starting from the left of the browser, right, left, right. Okay, now we are going to discuss about this CSS Element Selector. So by the name of the element we can decide the style, right? Let's start. So h1, so this is called element selector. This h1 is going to indicate only to this h1 heading and not all the element, right? So this h1 selector will indicate to this h1 heading. So only these two heading, this h1 2 heading will be modified. Whatever property I am going to write inside this selector, that is h1 selector, so only those things will change. Let me add color. I will change the color, that is red. Okay, so you can see if you go and watch out, so only the h1 heading color has been changed, right? So if I write here h2, color will be green. Okay, so now you can check it out here. So h2 color has been converted, or you can say h2 color is modified and it became green now, right? So this is how you can use the element selector. So this is how you can apply the element selector, right? So another way of applying the element selector, that is, let me show you. See, so I will write here, see, h3, right? Let's say color will be yellow and background color, that will be red. Okay, but once I will execute this, you can see these two are h3 heading. Okay, so whatever I have written over here, this CSS has been, okay, this two property has been implemented, right, for these two h3 heading. But I want to modify the second h3 heading, not the first one. How will it be possible? I just want to modify this second one, not both the h3 heading. But in this document I have two h3 heading, right? And even if I do one thing, if I make it 4, you can see all 4 h3 heading have inherited the CSS property that I have declared here in this element, right? That is called CSS Element Selector. Whatever I have declared inside this CSS Element Selector with the name h3, this CSS property value has been modified and executed to all the h3 heading, but I just want to modify, let's say, the second one and not all these three, all those four, right? So for that, here I will write, see, nth, see, this is colon, right? First write the name of the element, that is h3. This particular element I am going to apply the CSS for. So after that I have written colon, right? After that nth, then a hyphen, after that child, child, and after that inside the first bracket I have written 2, that means second number. So see, can you see? I think it has gone some wrong, so let me try it again. Yes, so you can see only, so this is also h3 heading, this is also h3 heading, this is also h3 heading, and this is also h3 heading, but only the second one has been modified. The CSS property that has been modified only for the second h3 heading. Why? Because see, this is the element selector, h3 has written, and nth of type. So you can use this nth hyphen of hyphen type. So 2 means the second one only. Instead of 2, if you write 3, you can see the third one will be modified. If you write here 4, then the fourth heading, fourth h3 heading, that will be modified. If you write here 1, then we can see only the first h3 heading will be modified and not other 3, right? So here we have 4 h3 heading, but by this way we can modify only the specific selected of those. So in a document we may have more than one same kind of HTML element as per the requirement arises. If by chance we have to modify the CSS property of any of those specific CSS element of a name, we can use this type of selecting method, right? So let me show you now the ID selector, right? ID selector. Pay attention. So now I will do one thing. Let me again delete all the CSS. So let me show you. So it is the default HTML CSS property. Now I am going to show you the ID selector. See, ID selector will modify the CSS property of a specific, or you can say a specified element. So let's say here we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 h3 heading, right? We have 4 h3 heading. Let me write here third. Okay, so I will just copy this and paste it over here so that I can identify the h3 heading, right? So you can see all these are h3 heading. So all these are h3 heading, right? And now I want to modify any given h3 heading. Let's say I want to modify this one, right? For that, here I will write id equal to write anything. This is called custom user defined selector. Okay, this is one type of custom user defined selector. So I will just write here, let's say any name you can write. I will write a third. So I have just written third, third, right, third. So now see here inside the opening and closing tag of style, here just put a hash. This hash will indicate that you are going to use the ID selector. To use the ID selector, this is how you are going to refer a particular element which is written inside the document, right? So after that you have to specify the name, that is third, this name third, right? Now you have to declare the CSS property. So let's say CSS property background color. So what you want to change the background color to black. So now you want to change the background color to black. Along with the background color, you also want to change the color. You want to make the color white, and also you want to do another thing. You want to bring the text alignment right at the center. So these three CSS property you want to change for whom? For this specific heading, right? So let me check. For that specific heading you have done these changes, right? And all other element are having the default CSS property, right? So now if you want to change any other other element CSS property, if you want to change the CSS property of any other element, you can use the same way. Let's say I want to change this heading, so this is second one, right? This is the H2 heading, and here I have two H2 heading, but out of this two H2 heading I want to change this one, right? This one, let's say ID, and let me name this as 2ND, right? 2ND. Now this is the ID selector, right? So I will write here the hash. Now 2ND user defined selector, and this 2ND, that is the ID selector, will indicate this heading, right? That will indicate to this heading. Okay. Now if I write over here that background color, if I make it to red, and if I change the color, to yellow, right? If I change the width also, if I make it to, let's say, 300 px, and if I increase the height, let's say 100 px, so I want to modify this 4 CSS property. Background color, that will be red, color will be font color, that is the text color, that will be yellow, width will be 300 px, height will be 100 px. So these changes I want to implement to which one? To this one, to this property, to this element, right? To this element, this only to this element. So let me check out. See, right? So ID second ID, let me see, 2ND, right? So let me write here ACCOND, second. 2ND is not working, I think. So if I make it to ACCOND, second, so let me check. Right, can you see this? So right, I hope you have understood. This is how you can use the ID selector. So if I do one thing, if I just remove this thing from here, I will cut it out from here, right? So after cutting it out from here, I will do one thing, I will paste it here. This is another H3 heading, I will paste it over here. So that means now this ID selector will go and indicate this one, this heading, right? So let us see, just observe. I'll do the replacement and you can see. Okay, so this is a user defined selector. I have named it as third. So this is the ID selector. This property has been exercised to this heading, and this is another ID selector. So any name we may give. Okay, so this property has been exercised and modified this one, this heading, right? I hope you have understood how to use this ID selector. Now let us discuss about the class selector. So see, so one thing, let me notify you before I start showing you the class selector, that you should not use this name repeatedly, more than once in a single document, right? So this should be a unique name. ID selector must have a unique identity for a specific element, as like your roll number. So in your class, each and every student have a unique roll number. So a roll number, a same roll number can never be assigned to more than one student, right? Same as that, same name of ID selector can never be assigned to more than one HTML element. So let me show you. If I try to assign here ID equal to, let's say, THIRD, so can you see warning message has been thrown by the text editor that duplicate ID third from line 30 to column 9 to line 30 to column 23, right? So warning message has been given by the text editor because ID selector is unique selector. So by using the ID selector, you can uniquely indicate to a specific HTML element. So you can't provide, it is not allowed, okay, to provide more than one user defined ID selector having same name. So you can give other name. I can make it THIRDS. So now a unique name I have given, but more than one element cannot have a same name of ID selector, just like your roll number, and you can say your other number. More than one person may not have same other number, right? So I hope you have understood. Now let me start the discussion with the class selector, class type selector. So class type selector is also a user defined selector. So what is the advantage of using this class selector, that we are going to discuss now. So let me delete this first. Okay, now okay, so now it's became again a default HTML attribute having all property has been set up to its default property value, right? All HTML property has been reset to its own default value. So let me show you the class selector. By the name class, we can draw out one thing, that as in a class we have a group of students, right? So if I say that all the student of class 9 must come at the corridor, we have a meeting with you, right? Then what will happen? All the students who are present in class 9 will come at the corridor for the meeting. So if I say that roll number 5 of class 9, please come at the corridor, I have a meeting with you, only a single person will come, a single student will come at the corridor for having a meeting. But if I say class 9 student, please come at the corridor, then all students of class 9 will come. That means a class will indicate a group of person or a group of students. Here also a class that is a user defined selector. A class selector will indicate a group of HTML element, right? So let us start. See, here I will write class, CLASS, class equal to, let's say, a student, STUD. Let me write STUD. So this is a class. Any name you may give, right? So I have given the name STUD. So that is user defined selector. Why I have used the word user defined selector? Because there are no specific category of name. You can give any name, right? So in class selector and ID selector, you can give any name other than the keyword. Other than the keyword. What is keyword? Keyword are the reserved word which are used for the let me say you H1. H1 is the keyword, H2 is the keyword. So these are reserved word. Okay, so apart from this reserved word, you can give any name, right? So these keyword are reserved, kept reserved for by the library. You can say library. So HTML library has a reserved word. So apart from those reserved word, you can use anything, right? H1 has been reserved for H1 heading. H2 has been reserved by the HTML library for the H2 heading. P that has been kept as a reserved for the paragraph tag. So all these are reserved, or you can say the keyword. So apart from this, you can use any given word, okay, for the class and the ID selector. So here I have used STUD. So same thing I will copy and put it over here. Okay, same thing I will copy and again put it over here, and again I will put it over here, right? So can you notice one thing? So same class I have applied to this H1 heading, H2 heading, right? H3 heading, H4 heading, and also I will apply the same to this paragraph, right? Now STUD. So here I will write dot STUD, right? So this is how you can refer the class selector. The class selector will be referred by dot, right? After that you have to write the name of the selector. So this is the class selector I have used. So now whatever I am going to declare inside this bracket, right, whatever CSS property I am going to declare here inside this bracket along with the value, those value will be exercised and those will be executed to this 4 element, 1, 2, 3, 4, and also this one, that is 5 element, right, last one paragraph. Okay, so why? Because all these 5 element, irrespective of that, these are separate, you can say different types of element, right? One is H1 heading, another is H2 heading, other two is H3, H4 heading, another one is paragraph. But as because all these elements are belonging to this STUD class, whatever property I am going to write inside this, let's say color, this will be exercised to all those elements, right? So color will be red, right? Background color will be yellow. Let me check. So can you see all these 5 element, H1 heading, H2 heading, H3 heading, H4 heading, and also the paragraph. All these 5 elements are belonging to which class? The class name was STUD. As because this, that is the selector dot represent as a class selector, this is the class name and this is the class selector which will indicate this 5 element. Okay, and this is the property and this is the property value. So all these elements will be modified with this property value. So this is how you can use the class selector. So if let me use another class here. So class will be say okay, TEAC. This will be the class TEAC. So let me copy this to here also, this h1 heading, and these two this another is h2 heading. So only for these two I have written TEC, right? Let me write here dot TEC. Now see, I will do one thing. I will just change the background color. Background color will be black and color will be, let's say, white, right? Now only white, right? Now you can see. Now this is another class selector. This class selector will indicate these two heading. One is h1 heading and another is h2 heading, right? And some modification will take place over here, you can see. So TEAC, right? TEAC. So I have done some spelling mistake, that is why it was not executed. Now you can see. So this is how you can use the class selector. So I hope you have understood. Now let me discuss about the last one, that is Css Attribute Selector. So to show you Css Attribute Selector, first thing I need to do, let me remove this thing and I will just keep only few element, okay, and I will also delete this one. So you can see I just have 4 heading. So let me show you which 4 heading I do have over here. Okay, only 4 headings. So you know we can use the anchor tag. First let me use the anchor tag. So this is the anchor tab. Anchor tab is used to do the hyperlink, okay, to jump from one page to another page. We can use the anchor tag. So we know that we have done this in the previous HTML classes. So today in this class I am going to show you the attribute selector. So target equal to ARGET underscore BLANK, right? So inside this href we have to write the location of the file, okay, where we are going to jump from one page to another page. So that I am not writing here because my purpose of showing you that is different. So here I am going to show you the attribute selector. So this is attribute. This is attribute for the anchor tag. So this is HTML tag, okay, and this is the attribute of that HTML tag, that is blank. So here I will write A means anchor tag, okay, anchor tag, and inside the third bracket I will write that is TARGET, target, that means this target. Now here I will write color, that will be red. So see, please notice I have 4 heading over here, right? But out of this 4 heading, first heading and the third heading, these 2 heading, in these 2 heading I have used this target attribute. Other 2 heading does not have this target attribute, right? So by writing here as A, that is the anchor tag, and this is the target I am indicating to. So those anchor tag which have used this target attribute, only those anchor tag will have a color that is red, right? Now you can see over here, can you see the anchor tag color has been changed to red, only for the first one and the third one. Why? because I have written here the anchor tag which have the target property. Only those anchor tag color must be modified to red. So the color of only those anchor tag which have a target attribute that has been used, only for those anchor tag the CSS color property will be changed and the value will be red. So you can see the first heading and the third heading, only for these two heading I have used the target attribute, right? And that is why that CSS property has been applied to these two heading, the first one and the third one. I hope you have understood all these 5 types of CSS selector. Now you can use these 5 types of CSS selector in your HTML document, and in the next class I will discuss about different kind of CSS property that we can use to make a website. Slowly we will move forward and we will make attractive looking website, web layout. So thank you for being patient, and if you have not subscribed this channel yet, do subscribe the channel and click the bell icon so that when I will upload the next class you will be notified. Thank you.